Hey everyone, welcome to the video. How are you all doing? Today I want to talk about sensory overload from my experience as someone with Asperger Syndrome or high functioning autism, but also ways that I go about trying to manage sensory overload so that it doesn't affect me as much. But first, gotta take my stepson to school. Okay, so he's all dropped off and happy. So let's get talking. Before I go out for lunch, over sensory, let's get talking about it. Eating cookies as well. What is sensory overload firstly? Basically, it is, I'm going to use how it is for me to try and explain things. One of the 5 senses is just receiving too much information for my brain to handle. One of them has been stimulated, let's say sounds for example. I notice absolutely everything, okay? So for me, it's normally sight and sound, sometimes smell, in the sense of like you go down like the spice aisle at the grocery store or the perfume aisle at a department store, and it smells. But it is that there's so much information from those senses going to your brain that you just can't mentally handle anything extra, and that's when it's overload. And for me these days, it's a matter of just, I wouldn't say mentally break down, but I become useless. Let's face it, as a human being, I go from I can do things in life to I'm now useless. In the sense of I'm more stressed, so the stress levels, they start rising up, but which makes me a bit more snappy as well. Like my fuse is a lot shorter, put it that way. But we'll find a nice corner where the sensory overload is happening and, you know, figuratively cut on the ball and rock back and forward. So yeah, you know, healthy life choices those are. So now that we've gone through what sensory overload is, which basically is an accumulation of sounds, smells, sights, it could be things that you're touching as well. When I suffer from sensory overload the most is, I think the prime example is shopping centres or malls, depending on where you're from, at Christmas time, where the shops are 1, a heck of a lot busier, and 2, Christmas decorations are usually bright and colourful and full of lights. Yay. But other occasions that get to me, sadly, children get noisy. When they get very, very noisy, I can't process any more sounds despite still trying to process everything else that's coming into my ears. It just gets too much. There's a phone shop in one of the shopping centres. Actually, the shopping centre I'm going to go to for lunch today. Maybe I'll get some B-roll of that. Where it's full of lights and whatnot. It's just phone cases and like ring lights and whatnot. It's just like a phone accessory shop, but it's so full of lights that I haven't walked into it, and I am going to be absolutely goddamn desperate to have to walk into it, because I ain't walking into that shop. But family events also gets to me, again, it's the noise. It's so many people, so much going on, and that's where the visual comes in. It's not just bright lights and a lot of colours, it's also just a lot of people in one space moving around, because, well, I try and hear as much as I can, I try and see as much as I can, and it's not that I am making efforts to do that, it's just I can't help but do it. Let's now talk about how I go about dealing and trying to cope with sensory overload. Firstly, my partner is a big help. She will tell me, look, you're having a moment, it's getting a bit too much here for you, find somewhere to go or put your headphones on. So that is helpful, to have someone to go, hey look, you're having a moment, it's okay, go sort yourself out. That's not something that I do. Let's talk about things that I do. When I notice that I'm getting a bit stressed and I can identify that it's like sound, well, I've got a pair of They aren't the best for noise cancelling, but they are active noise cancelling headphones. They cancel out the noise enough where I can still hear things that's going on around me, but much less. And of course, if you play music or watch something on YouTube, again, that background sound is going to be even less. So that does help. Okay? When I'm going to the shops, nowadays I generally take that headset with me just in case. Like if I'm going to go have lunch at the shops by myself, I'll take that with me just in case, because I know I'm going into an environment that could stress me out. At Christmas time at the shops, when there's so many other people, and it's not just Christmas time, but Christmas time is the one time a year that I definitely do this. But what I do is, there's so many people, the Christmas lights are usually hanging from the ceilings and whatnot. I will avoid walking into people by looking at their feet, looking at their legs, looking at their feet. I look out far in front of me and I go, okay, cool. I can avoid everyone, and I am cutting out quite a fair bit from my field of view because I'm looking down at the ground. If I'm at like a birthday party or something for a family member and it's getting too much, again, nowadays I bring my headset, but also one thing that I do is that I firstly remove myself far enough away where I can still be part of the conversation. Like I can still go, yeah, computer did this. But even if that's not doing well enough for me, I'll remove myself from the room and try and reset myself. And one thing I do both at home and at the parties is I will put YouTube on, or I'll watch anime. Like I'll actually do a hobby. I'll do something that I have an interest in. Anime is one of my special interests, but I do this stuff so that I am distracting myself and faster resetting. I'm not mulling on, oh my god, I'm so stressed because it's so noisy here. I am trying to be active in distracting myself so that I reset quicker and can reintegrate myself into the group faster. If at the shops things are still getting too much, it's not always simple to find somewhere quiet to be, but if you know that there is a spot in the shops that I guess you feel more comfortable at, whether it's quieter or it's got things that interest you, go there. Again, distract yourself in a sense of limit your world to a few things instead of everything. That is what sensory overload is, how it affects me. I wouldn't say that I have meltdowns because of sensory overload, but it can contribute to meltdowns possibly happening, in the sense of if anything else were to happen that just ticks off the Asperger's in a negative way, that I'm not going to cope with it as well as what I would be able to otherwise. But anyway, thank you all for watching. Do hit that like button below. Also, I have a few ideas for future videos, so stay tuned for those. Anyway, I want you all to have a good day. Think positive. See ya.